Welcome. My name is Jennifer Cannell. I am one of the education specialists for the Alabama State Department of Education Federal Program Section. Today, we're going to be talking about the poverty data selection for districts with CEP schools. And we're going to be talking about that process for the upcoming fiscal year 2027. Now, when we say CEP, we mean Community Eligibility Provision. If you're in an LEA that did not have any schools that participated in CEP this past school year, the 25-26 school year, then this video does not pertain to you. But if you are in an LEA that did have at least one school participate in CEP for that 25-26 school year, then this video will include information that you need in order to help make a decision for the upcoming fiscal year on the poverty data that you will be using. First, we're going to talk about that poverty data, where it comes from, and exactly what that all entails. Your poverty data that's used is always 1 year in arrears. So this year's poverty data that's going to be used on the building eligibility page in EGAP for FY27 actually originated from October of 2025, and that we always use the third Friday in October. And it's a snapshot of that date. So whoever was enrolled in the school on that date counts in your enrollment count, along with anyone who was directly certified that was enrolled that day for free lunch. Then they will make up your low income count for a CEP school. Now, the poverty data on the building eligibility page is not available for view in that EGAP platform until the FY27 consolidated application opens up. However, starting in about December of each year, you can go ahead and look that poverty data up in the AIM portal in the socioeconomic indicator tile. And you can go ahead and be doing your program planning and everything else that you need to do for the upcoming school year. Now, the poverty percentage is determined by the low income count divided by the enrollment. Now, the enrollment will not change. That's going to be a static number, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But the low income count is what you determine, is the decision that you will make which low income count that you're using based on if you're using the multiplier, the 1.6 multiplier to multiply that low income count by 1.6, or if you're not going to use that multiplier. And for more information about what the multiplier is and how it's used, I'm going to refer you back to the FAQ document, which will give you all the details that you need to know on that. Okay, let's look at that low income count and the default setting for that automatically populates on the building eligibility page in EGAP. For CEP schools, what's going to automatically appear is that count of directly certified students on that snapshot date, the third Friday in October of the previous year. And that count of students that's directly certified as free for free lunch is going to be multiplied by 1.6. Okay. And if you are a district that has both CEP and non-CEP schools, then what's calculated at a default, what will automatically appear for your non-CEP schools is the count of free plus reduced. So anyone who's directly certified as free, plus all the income applications that were submitted that students may have been identified as free or reduced price. And that together makes up the low income count for non-CEP schools. If there is a district that has no CEP schools whatsoever, then the low income count equals the free plus reduced lunch count based on those lunch applications plus the directly certified as free. So the default setting is to automatically use the 1.6 multiplier for CEP schools. Okay, let's look at your alternate option. If you are a district with CEP schools, you have the option not to use that 1.6 multiplier. So instead of multiplying that count of free students who are directly certified by 1.6, you would just use the count of free students for your CEP schools. And in order to use a common poverty metric, if you have both CEP and non-CEP schools, if you choose this alternate option, then your non-CEP schools, we're also just going to look at their free lunch number, which is made up of income applications and those directly certified at the non-CEP schools. So we're eliminating that reduced count, reduced price lunch count. And this is not applicable with a district that has no CEP schools. There is not an alternate option for poverty data for them. So this is an option that is only available to districts who have schools that are participating in the Community Eligibility Provision Program. Okay, if you want to use this alternate option right here, this is not the default option that's automatically going to populate in EGAP. So in this case, we would need your LEA to submit the poverty data selection form, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But I do want to offer one caveat here. Sometimes people think that if they choose not to use the 1.6 multiplier for Title I ranking and serving purposes, then they can't use it on the CNP side for meal reimbursement. And that is not true. The option that you're considering today impacts the Title I Part A program only. It does not impact what you are doing or the choices that you're making on the CNP side with your meal reimbursement. Let's go ahead and review those ranking and serving requirements within Title I Part A. Out of your eligible schools for Title I, you have two priority groups. First, you have higher priority schools, and then you have lower priority schools. High priority schools exceed 75% poverty. And if you are a high priority school, that means the district must serve you as Title I. And you have to participate in the Title I program. Now, LEAs who have the high priority schools also must rank those schools in strict order of poverty percentage without regard to grade span. Then you have the lower priority schools. Those are the schools that are at or below 75%. And if any funds remain after serving the higher priority schools first, then the LEA can choose to serve these lower priority schools, but it's not required to do so. And another option with the lower priority schools is to serve them by grade span grouping instead of strict poverty percentage. So it's very important that you look at how both options, the default option of using the 1.6 multiplier, and then the alternate option of not using the 1.6 multiplier, what does that do to your schools as in regards to making them higher priority or lower priority, or does it make them not eligible for Title I Part A funds at all? So that's another thing to think about there. So now that we've reviewed the ranking and serving requirements, we're going to move on to the socioeconomic indicator tile, because this is where you can find your poverty data. You're going to go to your AIM portal and you're going to log in. And once you get in your AIM portal, yours may look different than mine. You may have access to portals that I don't, etc. Yours may be in a different order. But what you're looking for is the socioeconomic indicator tile. You're going to go ahead and click on that tile because that's where your poverty data is located before you can access it in EGAP. Okay, once you get into your socioeconomic indicator tile, your view will look like this. And today we're using Aniana City as an example. And so yours will likely just populate with your system's name there. But what you need to look at is the school year and the collection. It's very important that you select the correct options for these. Now, for FY27, we're going to look at the previous school year, which was the 2026 school year. If I wanted to look at what my poverty data was for last year, which is the FY26 EGAP application, I'm going to go back and look at school year 25. But for program planning right now, I need to look at 2026. And it's very important that you select the correct collection. We are looking at the fall 20th day collection. Note that there are several options. CEP is an option, but that is not going to show you accurate data that is used for your low income count in the building eligibility page in your consolidated application in EGAP. So you need to make sure that that collection is set on fall 20th day. And then you can see that it's going to pull up the district level information. Now you can see highlighted to the very left of the system code, there's a little box with a plus sign in it. In order to see your school level data, you're going to need to click on that little plus sign and give it a second to load, and then your school level data is going to drop down. And then you'll be able to see your data by school. Now, what are you looking for here? There's two particular columns that you need to ensure that you are looking at as you weigh both options. And I'm going to show those to you now. First of all, if you want to see what the default option is going to be, that is the option where you're using the 1.6 multiplier, then you're going to look at this very last column, which is called the recalculation of the low income and the times the multiplier percentage column. That is your percentage with the 1.6 multiplier. That's the column that you need to look at and compare those poverty percentage numbers with the option if you were not to use the multiplier. That option is going to be the free percentage column. So you can see with the very first school there, I'm looking at a poverty percentage of 71.13% with a multiplier, or a poverty percentage of 44.48% without the multiplier. So those are the two things that I'm comparing. One option, which is the default option, is to use the 1.6 multiplier. That means 1.6 is multiplied by the free count, and then that new total is divided by the enrollment. Or the free percentage column is just the free count divided by the enrollment. Now, there is something that I need to mention here. If your system is undergoing a reconfiguration, that means you are opening schools, you are closing schools, you're rezoning schools, then we have to use your reconfigured poverty data. We cannot use the numbers that are automatically populated here from last October. If you're in the situation where you have a reconfiguration, you need to reach out to me directly and we can look up your reconfigured numbers when they become available and then compare them that way, because I do not want anyone to be in a situation where they would have preferred another option because their numbers were not reflective of what is in the socioeconomic indicator tile. So that's going to be the only reason why they would be different, is if there was any sort of reconfiguration. Okay, we're going to look at a few examples. And you can do this with your own poverty data. So in example one, we're looking at a fictitious LEA and with some fictitious schools. And you can see this top half is use the 1.6 multiplier for all schools. That's going to be that recalculated times the multiplier column. And then the bottom half, where it says do not use the 1.6 multiplier for all schools, that's going to be that free percentage column. So you can see here that I have gone ahead and highlighted the high priority schools in green and the low priority schools in yellow. So you can see that with the default option of using the multiplier, all the schools are considered high priority, meaning they would all need to be served in rank order. And then without using the multiplier, two of them actually become low priority. Well, why would this matter? Why would an LEA choose to use one option over another? It just totally depends on the goals and priorities of each individual LEA and their needs as well. So let's say that this particular LEA really had a focus on career, college and career readiness, and they wanted to prioritize their high school. Well, they could choose to use the alternate option, which is not using the multiplier, and then that would allow them to prioritize this high school. Now, the high school could not be served over the two elementaries, but it could be served over the middle. It could receive a higher per pupil allocation than the middle school. And it could also, you could choose to serve it and not the middle school. But if they went with the default option of option one, they would not be able to do that. Another example is say this LEA had a focus on the elementary grade span, and they were focusing on early intervention strategies. Well, by not using the multiplier, they could choose to just serve the two elementary schools, the two high priority schools, and not serve the middle or high school at all. And that would allow them, remember, your allocation, your LEA's total allocation does not increase because you serve more schools. And so this would allow each elementary school to receive a bigger piece of the pie because you're not dividing that school level allocation between more schools. You would only be dividing it between the two elementary schools instead of all four schools. Option one of using the multiplier, the default option, you would be required to serve all four of those schools. So you can see how the options can have a big impact on helping you accomplish what your tailored goals and strategies and needs are within your districts. Okay, let's look at example two. Here, I have highlighted the low priority schools in yellow and the schools that are not that are highlighted in red are not eligible. So you can see this is a small district. You can see that by using the default option of using the 1.6 multiplier, all three schools can be served with Title I Part A funds. However, in the alternate option, not using the multiplier, only the elementary could be served with Title I Part A funds because the two other middle and high school now are not, their poverty has dropped to a point where they're no longer even eligible to receive Title I Part A funds. So this district they're a small district, so they may want to serve all of their schools. In this case, they would really need to stick with the default option of the multiplier if they were going to choose to do that. We're going to look at one more example. And in this example, you can see all the schools in both examples are high priority. So it really doesn't have an impact for this particular LEA on using the default option with the 1.6 multiplier versus not using it. So in this case, we just need to stick with the default. There is no change whatsoever in how the schools must be served. Every school must be served in strict rank order in both options. So there's no reason to select the alternate option. The default option is best. Okay, I hope that those examples helped. And if you need some help with the portal, the socioeconomic indicator tile, finding your specific data, or if you need help just comparing it, looking at those two columns, that recalculated column that's with the multiplier versus the free percentage column without the multiplier, then you're welcome to sign up for like a 30-minute time slot. In the email, there's a link and you can sign up for that time slot, and we can look at your individual information and the impacts that it would have, and you can tell me what your LEA specific goals are, and we can decide, what would be the best route for you all in your specific situation. Okay, so for the FY27 year, we have our streamlined poverty data selection form. This year, the only LEAs that need to complete this form are those that want to use the alternate option of not using the 1.6 multiplier. Because the system automatically sets the 1.6 multiplier for everyone, we're not going to require LEAs to submit a form to us saying they want to use the multiplier because it's already that default setting. So only LEAs that do not want to use the 1.6 multiplier for the FY27 year need to submit this form. The form can be submitted via DocuSign. There's a link in the email. Or if DocuSign does not work for you, you have some technical issues with DocuSign, you can print off a physical copy of the form that was attached in the email, and you can complete that form by hand and have your superintendent sign and date, and then email that form back to me. Scan it in and email it to jennifer.cannell@alsde.edu. Okay. So which LEAs need to submit the form? Let's review. The ones that do need to submit the form are the LEAs who have that choose not to use the 1.6 multiplier. Excuse me. The LEAs who do not need to submit the form are those that choose to use the 1.6 multiplier, or the LEAs that have a total enrollment of less than 1,000 students, because those LEAs are exempt from ranking and serving, period. Okay, here's the form in DocuSign. When you click on the link, this will pop up, and what it's asking you to do is to enter the name and address for the federal programs director, and then the name and email address for the superintendent. That goes ahead and assigns the roles that need to be completed by the specific people within the form. And then you'll click Start. At that point, the form will either open for you or it will email you a copy and you can start the form from your email. The federal programs director is going to need to enter the contact information, the name, phone number, and email. And then once that is complete, it'll say ready to finish, and you'll click finish. At that point, it's going to email the superintendent. And then when it pops up for the superintendent, it's going to pop up for them to sign and date. Once that takes place, once that is finished, and they click finish on their end, then it's going to email you and the superintendent, as well as myself, a completed copy of the form. And that's all you need to do. Okay, so let's review for this year. The form is going to be due by July the 24th. That's on a Friday. Again, you can submit that form via DocuSign or email it to me. And it's very important that you understand that we cannot accept any late forms and no changes can be made after the due date. It it impacts changing your poverty data impacts your ranking and serving. It impacts the amount of money that is PPA'd out allocated out to the schools through your per pupil allocation. And so you need to start working in your application. And if you change your poverty data, that messes up everything that you've already done in your planning. So we cannot accept any late forms and we cannot make any changes after the July 24th date. Here you can find my email address and my phone number. I hope this was helpful. I also want to refer you back to the frequently asked questions document. It covers a lot of things in detail that were not mentioned in this video. Also, if you need additional help, you want me to sit down and look at your specific data, then go ahead and click that link to book a little 30-minute meeting time. It'll take you to a little scheduling page, and you can find a time that works for you that I have available. And then we can meet and look at your specific data. So I hope this helps. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.